£100,000 per year is £8,333 per month. Now, when I first started designing for clients, I would typically charge anywhere between £100 to £200 per artwork. This meant to reach my yearly income goal, I would have to, in theory, create at least 55 designs every single month. Today, I'm currently in the process of building a design agency, which is on track to hit this income goal. However, I will not be creating 650 designs throughout the year. So what's changed? 2 years ago, I started researching how I could charge more for my designs, which is when I stumbled across branding. I was seeing creators online talking about how they're making anywhere between £5,000 to £15,000 per project. And in my head, I'm already picturing myself driving that Lamborghini. Now, I've got to admit, I was completely naive as to how much there actually is to learn about branding, but regardless, I created an Instagram page, documented my learning process, and fast forward to today, I've been able to quit my 9 to 5, smash that yearly income goal, and build some solid processes and foundations, which have allowed me to transition from a freelancer into starting my own agency. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you exactly how I create brand identities from start to finish, the processes and templates that I use, and I'll also share with you the problems that you may face along the way. This is Romely, a travel itinerary planner who wants to be remembered in a saturated market of boring brands. Now, we're about to take them on a 4-step journey, which will take them from a name and an idea to a brand that competes visually with its biggest competitors. But first, let's break down what a brand identity consists of. Now, I like to split the project into 2 sections. We've got strategy, and then we've got visual identity. Now, the strategy is the why behind the brand, like the roots of a tree, and then the visual identity is the design elements of the brand, which consist of logo design, word mark, color palette, typography, brand assets, and then we consolidate them all into a thing called brand guidelines, which we'll jump into later today. Okay, so before the project begins, I always start with a qualifying call. You may also know this as a discovery call. Essentially, it's to touch base with the prospect, listen to the current problems, and to see if you're a good fit for each other. In the past, I've had client calls go really well, nice and friendly, you could probably see yourself going for a pint with them, and then on the other hand, I've had calls where I've left and said to myself, that guy's a Now, if you do get these feelings early on, dodge the project, you're about to run into endless problems. Personally, I'm very transparent about the offerings on my site, which works to my advantage because I do tend to average about a 75% close rate on client calls. The 25% that don't go through, well, that might be a me problem. Now, the way I like to position the call is to not necessarily sell to the client, but to motivate them to actually start the branding journey. When you think about it this way, not only does it calm your nerves, but it also helps you genuinely solve the client's problems. Personally, after many client calls, I've found that the best way to sell your services to a client is by visualizing the process. So the best way to do this is by pulling up my Notion portal, which you can get for free in the link in the description, and guiding them from left to right whilst referring to example projects. Okay, so we've won the client, received 50% payment up front, and now it's time to pick the brains in regards to essential information regarding the business. Now, you'll find some clients know exactly who they are and who they'd like to appeal to, but others, you'll have to hold the hand through the entire process, which is where the client questionnaire falls into place. Okay, so fresh out the Notion portal, I've created this pretty basic questionnaire, and it's going to allow us to get the minimum information required to build a strategy. Now remember, this is just a base questionnaire. I do tailor it to each client since all of my clients operate in different industries. But essentially, these questions allow me to build out a 40+ page brand strategy document, which if you've not already watched last week's video, I definitely recommend it. I've got a 12-minute video on there breaking down this entire stage from questionnaire to strategy, and it's also for a real client, so make sure you check that out. Now, if you're not familiar with brand strategies, I'll quickly show you an example of one. We've got an example here for a client project that was recently completed called Volatile. So like I was saying, these questions allow me to build out this 40+ page brand strategy document, which as you can see cements the mission, the vision, the brand values, tone of voice, etc. So definitely check out that video, there'll be a link in the description. Okay, so we finally completed the strategy for Romely. Let's take a look at the key takeaways. So the purpose is to simplify travel planning and encourage exploration. The vision is to be the go-to travel companion app for modern explorers. We've narrowed the values down to simplicity, adventure, and trust. And we've noted that the target audience is millennials and young professionals aged 18 to 35. And finally, we've also refined the brand personality to be approachable, vibrant, and innovative. So if we were to wrap this up as a design brief, Romely's branding should be vibrant, approachable, and modern, whilst conveying simplicity, connection, and adventure. So straight away, I'm already thinking bold visuals and inspiring messaging, which is going to appeal to travelers. Okay, so before we start the design work, I've created 2 different stylescapes. Now, if you're not familiar with stylescapes, they're essentially advanced mood boards. And what do I mean by advanced mood boards? Well, I mean, it's not just a bunch of random photos thrown into one mood board. Instead, it's closer to the final direction. Now, when I first started selling identities, I would initially present 2 mood boards to the client. But when we go back to the reason we create mood boards in the first place, it's essentially to align the direction of the branding with the client so that there are no surprises in the design stage. Now, personally, I was finding that these mood boards did not solve this issue 100% of the time, because even if we know how we want the brand to look, the client might not be able to see our vision through a bunch of random images. Therefore, by creating a stylescape, we're able to tell a story through visuals from top to bottom, giving the client an early feel to a very early development of the identity. When creating the stylescapes, I like to prioritize certain parts of the brief. Now, this allows me to experiment with different identities, and it helps me truly understand what the client actually values the most. Now, nothing's final when it comes to creating these stylescapes. However, I do like to determine the typography and the color palette, and then I like to fill the rest with inspiration. By doing this, we aren't committing a ridiculous amount of time to the stylescape. However, we do have the advantage of an early sign-off on certain sections, which also makes the logo development easier. Okay, so we've just received feedback from the client and they want to go with stylescape A. So now it's time to get down and dirty with the identity design. So if we pull up the sections that we need to complete, we currently have no logo, however some inspiration. We have an idea of a word mark which hasn't yet been customized. We have a signed off color palette, a signed off typography selection, and we also have an idea of how we'd like the brand to look in action. So now the next steps is to tackle the logo design. Okay, so I've narrowed it down to about 4 sketches from 50 concepts, and I'm about to show you which ones I think are the strongest. First up, we have the directional arrow with the negative space plain inside. Option B, we have a location marker with some signal waves. Option C, I'm experimenting with a network of people. And option D, which is a sunset over the ocean. Okay, so after vectorizing them on Illustrator, I've decided to run with option B. Now, when creating logos, I tend to create a square of 1,000 pixels, split it into a grid, and make each square around 10 pixels. This way, when I click shift and left and right, the square will jump to the next square. And one mistake I commonly see, including my former self, is people neglecting the importance of negative space. For example, the negative space in this logo, if it was too small, the logo would look very strange when inverted to a white color. Taking a look at our new word mark, which was formerly the font Labora, I've now made some tweaks due to the inconsistencies in the font, and I've got to say, I'm very happy with how it came out. Okay, so now we have the proposed logo, we have the word mark, we have the fonts and the color palette. So now it's best to create the branding action using Mockups. You can use sites like Invar2 Elements, you can use my digital use templates, link in the description, or you can use sites like Adobe Stock to find high quality mockups. There we have it, a completed brand identity from start to finish. So now that the brand is ready to be presented, the next steps will be to jump on the call with the client, hopefully get our designs approved first time, and then we'd start to build out the brand guidelines. If you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button, because next week I'm going to be breaking down how to create a brand guideline from start to finish. So now that the identity is complete, wouldn't it be nice to offer our clients a free website? And what better way to do so than with today's sponsor, Framer. Now, if you've still not heard of Framer yet, you probably are living under a rock. It's a pretty new no-code web builder tool which is completely taking over the web design game. Now, don't worry if you've got absolutely no web design experience, that's absolutely fine, because Framer templates have over 1,500 templates to choose from. All you need to do is Google Framer templates and you'll be greeted with a bunch of free and paid templates. Now that we've downloaded the template, we are fully free to customize it any way that we like. You'll notice that this template looks very familiar, and with a few minor tweaks, we have this beautiful website which I've been using to convert cold traffic. So if you want to get started today with Framer, make sure to use the code Jack, and that will get you 25% off your first 3 months.